Hello and welcome back, Eddie Radosovich. George Stoya here from the SoonerScoop.com studios. A Friday edition of Around the Corner. We debuted last week. Thought it was pretty fun, but first things first, we got all your questions tabulated from the Crimson Corner, the message board on SoonerScoop.com. One of the, perks of being a member, getting some of these questions selected to get debuted or put on the show. Let's start, though, with something that you wrote about on Friday, boarding on SoonerScoop.com. The latest on the pursuit of Jim Knowles, Ohio State defensive coordinator. Certainly seems like he might be departing from Columbus, George. And, we've talked about it on all the shows this week. We talked about it on the Unofficial 40, put up updates on the Crimson Corner as well. But as of Friday afternoon, where do things stand with Oklahoma and the pursuit of Jim Knowles?
It's a waiting game. And I know that's not the answer a lot of you want out there. And maybe by the time that this is published, we find out what Jim Knowles' decision is. Like if you told me, sometime Friday afternoon or evening that some news broke, it wouldn't shock me. If you told me it wasn't till next week, that wouldn't shock me. Like I think that the one thing to know in all of this is that we don't know what Jim Knowles is thinking. His agent is someone who doesn't talk to a lot of people, especially reporters. And so the information that's being leaked out there is mostly coming from the schools. And what I can tell you is that Oklahoma feels about the same way that they did at the start of the week. Now, I think that the number and the negotiations have maybe changed at times. I think that number has certainly gone up from where it maybe started at the beginning of the week. Penn State has entered the conversation, and they have been, kind of involved really since Tom Allen, their defensive coordinator, left for Clemson on January 15th. So they've been in the mix. It sounds like Notre Dame kind of got into the party a little bit later. I don't really know where they stand. I know Penn State is throwing around some crazy numbers. I think Oklahoma is in that same conversation of those crazy numbers. And when I say that, I feel confident in saying that wherever Jim Knowles ends up, whether it's back at Ohio State or at one of these other schools, he's going to be the highest paid assistant in college football. That's going to happen.
Made $2.2 million. I think that was third last year as far as assistants go in college football. And, without Golden now moving on to the Cincinnati Bengals, that certainly opens a spot in South Bend and Marcus Freeman. As you said, Tom Allen headed down to Clemson to take on the defense coordinator role down there. So James Franklin's looking for somebody as well as Brent Venables. The suitors are kind of a who's who list of college football and maybe even possibly NFL.
Yeah. I mean,
I think anybody is open to having Jim Knowles on their staff in 2025.
And that's what's made this really difficult to report on is why exactly does Jim Knowles want to leave? And does he really want to leave? Sure. Is this a leverage play? I still think that could be something that's in play here. Is this he wants to get closer to his fiance who, is from Oklahoma and lives in Oklahoma? Maybe that's his number one priority. Or is his number one priority he just wants to go somewhere where maybe he meshes with the coaching staff better? I know that's been speculation around Ohio State, and maybe he doesn't mesh with all the coaches there. He's from Pennsylvania, so Penn State would make sense. So I think that's where things are getting confusing for people. And there's a lot of people that want to advance this story past where it is. And the reality is all these schools are kind of just at the mercy of Jim Knowles and what he wants to do personally and professionally. Sure. And that's the hard part. And I understand people are going to be disappointed if he doesn't end up picking OU. But OU's stance from the beginning was this was a long shot. It's still kind of unclear on if Jim Knowles was the one that actually reached out to Oklahoma. I do think there's some validity to that. And then, now it's reached from a long shot to really kind of a coin flip between these schools. And I just honestly can't sit here and tell you one way or another. I know somebody was like, gun to your head, where do you think he'll go? I don't know.
Yeah.
I still
think
the
gun down. Don't shoot me.
Please don't shoot me. But, I still think that if he ended up at Ohio State, that shouldn't surprise anyone. And that's the one thing that I'll say too is Ohio State does not want to lose Jim Knowles. And I know that's obvious, but it sounds like all the money that's been offered to Jim Knowles, Ohio State is willing to match it and probably even up it to keep Jim Knowles. So, again, we'll see how it plays out. If you told me that we found out in the next 15 minutes while taping the show, I mean, who knows?
That'd be incredible.
Yeah.
I will say, too, just in terms of Oklahoma's side of things, Brent Venables been out on the road recruiting here over this past week. Josh McCuistion obviously following that and tracking where he's been. He's been down in Florida and Georgia. Getting back closer to Oklahoma, he's been in Tulsa as of Friday boarding, making the rounds. I think Ben Arbuckle's doing the same up in the Tulsa area. So Brent should be headed back to Norman at some point over the course of Friday and into the weekend. And maybe you can really start I wouldn't say a dogged pursuit, because I think that they're pursuing him, certainly aggressively right now. It's like you said, a waiting game, and I think we're all going to find out together.
Yeah, and maybe that speeds up the process, right? Brent being back in town, and maybe he can have some more conversations. I don't know. I think OU's hopeful to have an answer today. I think they were hopeful to have an answer on Tuesday or Wednesday of this week.
Sure.
So that doesn't mean that it's going to happen. I think the other schools are in the same position. I thought it was interesting. Football Scoop put out a report, and Football Scoop's really reliable when it comes to coaching carousel stuff. And they had a quote in there about, Ryan Day, Brent Venables, James Franklin, and Marcus Freeman are all mad at Jim Knowles right now.
They're waiting
because they're
on
just
a word.
waiting. And I think that they're just as impatient as everyone else. They want an answer. But I think also from OU's side, they know that if Jim Knowles were to not come, they feel comfortable or confident they can go out and get somebody to coach the linebackers, and Brent can call the defense.
Right. At the end of the day, if you're not able to land Jim Knowles, you still have a linebacker coach, a position on the defensive staff that you're going to have to fill. And I think as of right now, it kind of seems like, in what we're kind of thinking around the Sooner Scoop offices, is it's full on Jim Knowles, and then you start delving through the other names. And I think there are other names. Kerry put in that the Monday update on the Crimson Corner, just in terms of there are a couple other names, and we'll get into.
They have a list for sure.
They're not able to land the big fish,
right?
The big fish being Jim Knowles. All right, let's get into the questions for this week. Thank you, George, for the update. Obviously, it literally could break while we're doing this here today, and at which point we would go into more of a breakdown of what it is. You can be a part of the Crimson Quarter community on 3. All you got to do is go to SoonerScoop.com and put your questions in on the message boards, and we'll delve through them throughout the week to get to the point of where we're at now. So we'll stay in. And, by the way, Junior Day coming up this weekend. Oklahoma did make a 2026 offer on Friday morning to a second 2026 quarterback. So Jaden O'Neal is supposed to be in town this weekend. Big Junior Day. Josh McCuistion has already put up the Sooner Scoop on the board for the weekly.
I think we'll need a
recruiting update.
We'll need a recruiting report.
Absolutely, on Monday to kind of wrap up everything from what was going to be the big first major Junior Day of 2025
Well, and
Oklahoma.
Just all the guys that went and saw this week on the road.
They've been very active, getting by high schools, getting and doing some of the in-home visits, things like that with 2026 guys that you can now do with juniors, which is, certainly unique in and of itself. Josh McCuistion, obviously, he caught up a little bit on that on previewing everything on the Unofficial 40. You can see that right here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel. All right, let's get into some of these questions, and we'll just go ahead and stick right with it. We'll go to Jim Knowles. And this one comes from Carrie's Diabetes as well as NOLA Sooner, kind of a combo little option. But as you can see, I don't think it's Joe C's call on this, followed up by NOLA Sooner, who says the BMDs, big money donors, ponying up the money or the drivers, but the decision lives with BV, being Venables, Joe Castiglione, as well as Joe Harris, president of the University of Oklahoma. Their jobs are on the line. Honestly, I don't believe this solves the majority of BV's issues as a head coach. Love the optics. Truly believe the money would have been better spent on the offensive side of the ball with the new position coaches and wide receivers and tight ends. This is something that we kind of talked about on Wednesday during the Unofficial 40. I know Kerry kind of said his piece on it. George, just as a kind of a follow-up to that idea.
Yeah, look, I think that the first sentence there saying that the decision, lies with BV, Josie, and Harris. I mean, that's ultimately true. I mean, obviously Brent is trying very hard to make this happen with Knowles, but I do think that Carrie's Diabetes is kind of right in terms of, Josie's, making sure they have the money to do this. And it sounds like OU's made a very attractive offer. So I don't think that that's an issue. As for, spending the money maybe somewhere else, I kind of don't disagree with the idea that, maybe they should have upped the money a little bit to spend more on some wide receivers or tight ends. Now, I more so say that for the tight end position.
Sure.
Because I do think that they got some talent at wide receiver and they feel like they retained some guys that they really like. Tight end, though, man, if you could have probably used another $1 million to try and go get somebody in the portal that would be, that could actually come in and contribute. So I kind of don't disagree with Noah Sooner's take.
Maybe splitting up the money and making a maybe more solid run at somebody like Luke has.
I will say, though, I do think this staff and administration understands the value of bringing in somebody like Jim Knowles.
And we've talked about the optics of a situation in which if you were able to accomplish this and get Jim Knowles to Dortmund, you're taking him away from the defending national champion. I mean, I think the optics of him and Brent Venables on the same sideline coaching the same defense.
You'd make the argument that OU has the two best defensive coordinators in college football, both on their staff. I mean, that's crazy. And it goes back to my point of the reason why they're trying to land Jim Knowles and willing to pay the money that it's going to inevitably cost is because if Brent Venables is going to work, I truly believe this, if he's going to work long term, he has to hand the defensive reins off, and nobody better than Jim Knowles to do that. And then on the flip side, let's say Brent doesn't work, you still want to have Jim Knowles on your staff. And so if you can have him already on staff, maybe that makes the OU job even more attractive. Maybe you can go out and get a young head coach, a young offensive-minded head coach to come in and be the new. I don't know. I'm just trying to think, from OU's perspective.
I'm sure
it
it'll
makes
be
a
in the
lot of
comments.
sense.
How would Kenny Dillingham fit with Jim Knowles?
Right. Whereas like a tight end, to push back on the other narrative about, well, why don't they spend it more on NIL? Well, these guys that they're bringing in, who's to say they're going to be here, 6, 7, 8 months. They might be gone. If you can get a guy like Jim Knowles, maybe he's here long term.
And who's to say? And, you never know how this is going to work. You don't get into the portal to get somebody that's going to come in and get hurt. But, what happens if he, gives somebody $1.5 million and all of a sudden they break their, leg or something?
Well, and I just think that the longevity and the impact of somebody like a Jim Knowles being on your staff is much greater long term than a tight end from Ball State.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't,
right.
Almost type of situation. The next thing that we'll get to regards to kind of the restructuring of the front office, and the news came out last week, or I guess it would have been late last week, that Curtis Lofton's officially stepping down as the general manager at the University of Oklahoma. The first one coming from, and this is all kind of stemming from the YouTube episode on the Oklahoma Breakdown this week, George, with Dusty Dvorak, Teddy Laban, and Gabe Eichard talking to Curtis Lofton. And, it's very well worth the time if you want to spend 45 minutes listening to kind of Curtis dialogue, everything that went into his decision, his thoughts on the NIL process, everything that goes into that. We'll just go straight to it. I don't even know how to pronounce this. McKilled, McKealled, not sure how we pronounce that. Are there plans to do a special pod or YouTube episode on the Curtis Lofton talk with Gabe and Teddy? George, just kind of your instant reaction to everything that went into the latest Oklahoma Breakdown with Curtis Lofton.
I thought it was a great episode. Lots of just good insight kind of behind the scenes of how OU's been operating with Curtis as the GM and also just in this NIL world. And I think Curtis's opinion is very valid when he talks about NIL and players wanting to get paid, and maybe it's player. I think he said players are maybe more soft than they used to be. All of those things I think is more than valid. I think that's a true concern in the direction of college football. I think we all agree with that. I think at the same time, if you're going to have someone like Curtis in that position as the GM, that person needs to understand that that's just the reality of the situation.
No reason to fight it, right?
Right. And I think that Curtis did a lot of really good things for OU football, and kind of being a guy that could mentor a lot of these young players as they went through this ever-changing college football world. At the same time, I think the next general manager at OU needs to be somebody that is very cutthroat when it comes to this and understands that this is now a business. This is no longer, and not to say that Curtis didn't understand that, but I think that you need to have somebody that can really understand the value of contracts, what players are worth in today's college football world, and basically all of those things that go into negotiating, deals with players and all of that, and just understanding that this is the new world that we're living in.
And I think there's a reason why when you talk about Oklahoma and kind of the restructuring of the front office that, obviously Randall Stevenson's kind of taking control of in terms of what they're doing, how they're setting up this
There's a
front
reason
office.
they brought in somebody like a Randall Stevenson and
Jake
a
Rosenberg has
Yeah.
NFL experience, and I think that's why the speculation that's out there in terms of this new GM is going to be somebody that has worked from the NFL ranks. And MG Sooner probably said it best. One, Curtis Lofton clearly wasn't the right man for the GM role at Oklahoma. I would add, as it stands now with the ever-changing landscape of college football. But two, most importantly, there's a lot of things that Curtis said are true. And there's a lot of things that you can completely understand where he's coming from as a former player that was an All-American at Oklahoma, that spent more than 8 years in the NFL playing the linebacker position at an extremely high level in Atlanta and New Orleans later on in his career. There's a lot of things that could be said that to be said of Curtis Lofton that are true. And you remember back to the Caden Green situation when he left in the dead of night. He was one of the guys that kind of held everything together in terms of that overall NIL process that Oklahoma has.
I totally agree. I think that again, like you said, they said it best. I agree. I didn't disagree with really anything Curtis said. I think that he was dead on just pretty much everything he said. I think that the other takeaway though was just that I think Oklahoma, it's clear why that maybe they decided to mutually part ways because of just the future of this thing and needing somebody that has some experience in handling, again, contracts, player worth, value, all of those things, and is a little bit cutthroat.
Sure.
That's the word I keep using, but I think that's kind of what you need in this position.
Well, and I would even probably add to that and say, George, that you need somebody that doesn't have a true connection almost to the players so they can take the personal feelings out of it. Because I think that, everybody has that in any walk of life or, at work or whatever. You have a close relationship with somebody, you're probably going to favor them over somebody else. And really that kind of idea needs to be taken out of it.
Yeah, and that's how the NFL operates. I know from covering it, I remember when, Von Miller, one of the all-time Bronco greats,
sure,
and a new GM came in and traded him away. And, I think that, that's a cutthroat business.
Right.
Everybody thought he was going to be a Bronco for life, right? And sometimes you got to do what's best for the organization. And that's what college football has become. It's no longer, about just the schools. It's the organization, the program, and the business of college athletics right now. And, I think that whoever the next GM is has to have some good experience in doing that.
No doubt. I would echo everything that you just said as well. Let's move along to Maple Long John. There was a lot of discussion on the Crimson Corner this week with the Thursday announcement that Oklahoma would be enhancing the fan experience over at Eldell Mitchell Ballpark. Oklahoma headed into really, truly, I guess, the last couple weeks of the offseason with the February 14th start to the baseball season. But really good point here by Maple Long John. People complaining People complaining about this are the worst about our fan base. They're going to be our best men's team this year, and I just bought 2 season tickets for $250 total. It's the best deal in town. I would agree with that. I do think that if
$250, that's awesome.
That's a steal
for
the competition and the series that they have coming in this year to Norman, obviously, with Texas, LSU coming to town. Both going to be quite fun here in Norman. Vanderbilt, I believe, is coming in town as well. I love the idea of them enhancing everything. I think anybody that went to the Norman Regional last year with everything they did in the outfield, really, really cool. It does bug me a little bit, and not so much the part about making fans buy tickets to get into the berm. That's neither here nor there. You'll see the same thing over at Baum Stadium, Arkansas, one of the best fan bases or best baseball fan bases in the country. Pack that place out. I don't have a problem with that. I could get with you, though, on the idea about bringing your own beer into the stadium or into the outfield area. I think that's one of the kind of the cool parts about the Baum Stadium and everything that goes into it.
To be clear, students can still do all that, correct?
Right. Well, I don't think they can bring their own alcohol in.
Oh, really?
The way that I understood it. I
Could
need
they
to
last
probably
year?
check in.
Yeah, it's everything. It's a free-for-all.
Right. You could just pull up. But I do think that it all plays a part in the better atmosphere. They're going to be trying to pack that place this year. It's going to be important that they do.
Yeah.
There should be a lot of interest in OU baseball this year. One of the best starting rotations, not just in the SEC, but the country, with Kyson Witherspoon coming into town, Cam Johnson coming in from LSU, Malachi Witherspoon, Kyson's brother, coming in to the starting rotation out of the bullpen from a year ago. So it's going to be fun. I'm excited about the baseball season.
Now, let me ask you this, because I haven't read up on it completely, but the new renovations to Eldell,
that's a common question.
So will that include this new right field thing, or is that separate?
I need to ask about that.
Okay.
From my understanding, the Section 405 that will be found in right field with an awning kind of covering anybody that wants to sit out there, which you'll probably need once we get to April, May, June. I understood it that would be in place for this year. Now, the season does start in a matter of 2.5 weeks. Yeah. I haven't been over to Eldel when we've been making our way over to the
I guess what I mean, the long term, because it's right. It's going to happen this season, that part of the right field. But is it in the long-term picture too?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that like the overall big renovation project would be scheduled to start at the end of the season. Now, God willing, you would hope that they play in a regional or host a regional or host a super regional. It would begin in full with the front, I don't know, the front area of Eldel Mitchell, the welcoming area. That'd probably be the first thing to get going, and then they'll work their way through everything else.
How much do you think tickets will be in that right field?
$15.
Okay, I mean, come on, people.
$15. The 126 chairback seats sold on a single game basis, starting at $15. So I would imagine for like the Vanderbilt series,
it'll
the
be bigger,
Texas
but
series, you'll probably get a big.
It's worth your money,
higher
though.
price. It's cheaper than a lot of other things you can do in this world, I would imagine. So I'm excited about it. Skip Johnson and that crew, 40 wins, 2 of the last 3 years. Obviously hosted the first regional in Norman, and I think it was like 13 years last year. That thing is headed in the right direction. Obviously, you look at the schedule, it's going to be extremely tough. I think D1 Baseball had them outside of the top 25, but Perfect Game had them, I think, 20th in the preseason. They were the 9th highest ranked team from the SEC.
Look, if they can have the pitching staff, they got a chance.
They got certainly
That's the key.
a chance. The Witherspoon brothers and Cam Johnson, Jacob Golston, they have a ton of arms. It's going to be kind of fun to see how Skip kind of blends that. Can't wait for some of the message board post from our from the game threads this year, which usually get pretty opinionated, as most of the threads on Campus Corner. And you can
the softball team stinks too this year. They're only 3
number
in the
3
country.
in the country. I think at OU. I think it was Florida, Texas, OU, OSU, top 4. So hopefully, fingers crossed that they will be getting to Oklahoma City. All right, moving right along. We got through the baseball stuff. This one's not so much of a fun story as it is just I thought it was really cool from this past week in terms of talking about Mark Andrews. Obviously had the rough divisional round for the Baltimore Ravens, drops the 2-point conversion from Lamar Jackson with less than a minute and a half left in the game, as well as the fumble in the fourth quarter. Really unfortunate. This was actually cool, though. The Buffalo Bills Mafia have put together, as they usually do in moments of need or moments of, joy for them. They raised $90,000 for
That's
a
crazy.
diabetes fund for Mark Andrews, donated it in, I believe, his name or the Bills Mafia. So Buffalo moves on into the AFC Championship coming up this weekend in Kansas City. But I guess there was some good. Every once in a while, you're reminded that, hey, man, there are some really good people out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know that the Bills fan base has been kind of known for doing that over the years. It sucked for Mark, man. Like reading his Instagram post, I was just like, damn, this is tough.
I think it was kind of one of those things too that we were sitting up at the office and we saw the Instagram post, and it's like you click on the comments, which I'm sure that Mark hasn't done, but ruthless people, ruthless people.
It's tough, and he's had a great career there. Obviously, I mean, one of the best in Ravens history.
He is the best. I mean, I think that he holds the touchdown record. I know he holds the touchdown record for receptions, which we're now moving in. I guess it would be his 9th year in the NFL next year. Kind of crazy to think about.
Wild. He's been one of the best. Who do you got this weekend?
Ooh, good question. I think the Eagles. I mean, I think the Eagles. I don't think it's crazy to say that Jaden Daniels can get this done on the road. I don't know. I just kind of lean back to the idea of
Jalen Hurts.
That's a great question. I know that on Friday afternoon he was asked about wearing a brace in the game on Sunday, and that's certainly something that sounds like he's going to have to do. So, I mean, the way that Chris Collinsworth was talking about Jalen Hurts last year, you would have thought that he was playing on an amputated leg.
Did he tear something, or
I don't know. I think that there's a lot of speculation, but obviously the Eagles aren't going to put anything out there.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. There's nothing better than Championship Sunday in the NFL.
It's great. And I think it's 2 great matchups.
It is.
And two teams and organizations that don't really like each other either. I mean, Eagles, Commanders in the same division.
Yeah.
And then obviously the Bills and the Chiefs, it feels like they've played in the AFC Championship every game.
It's incredible. It's incredible. I'm excited about that AFC matchup, though, with Josh Allen.
I'm taking the Bills this year.
I think that there's a lot of people that feel like that.
Yeah.
Which is, insane to think that all these people, I guarantee you, we're going to do this thing because I think the Bills are going to win too. But we're going to do this thing where we talk about the Bills all week, and then by Sunday evening, we're left sitting and saying, how the hell would we ever bet against
was always
Patrick
the
Mahomes?
Chiefs. Yeah.
It is kind of cool, though. Sunday will be a big day for OU football. They have the most players of any college in the championship round in the NFL. Yeah.
There you go.
And I don't know if the number, like Austin Seibert, he's on the Commanders, but he's not actually kicking with Zane Gonzalez. So I don't know if like that number is tabulated with all of those guys, but especially with the Chiefs and the Eagles.
The Chiefs, how many are on the Chiefs now? Winchester,
Samaje,
Ryan.
Samaje Perine. Samaje's on there, as well as Hollywood.
There you go. Yeah, Hollywood, obviously. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Pretty cool. All right, let's close this out. We'll close it out with a fun one here on this week's episode of Around the Corner. It's been a hot topic on the Crimson Quarter. George Stoya wedding sweepstakes. Where do I enter to win my invitation? Are you putting up 2 or 3 invitations for Crimson Corner persons?
No, we have a very tight guest list.
Interesting.
And so there will be no additions from the Crimson Corner.
So if you haven't gotten the save the date by today, you're probably not getting invited.
Correct, which we sent those out this week. Have you gotten yours?
I haven't. I'm not the best at checking
the mail.
Mail.
I mean,
do you ever get down to the post office or to the mailbox at the apartment
like
complex?
once or twice a month?
Yeah.
Like
unless I'm expecting something.
Yeah, if my mom, she'll send me something and I'll check it. But yeah.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah. Well, she'll send me like cookies or something.
Oh.
Yeah. She's the best.
But I thought you meant weed.
The
like
Sooner
marijuana.
No. But
you said yes. You have initially said yes.
No. They're not coming to the party. I did ask you if you wanted to maybe shoot the wedding. You could be our videographer.
I have unfortunately turned that offer down.
Maybe you could be the DJ.
I don't think that Carrie would want me going to the reception with a camera.
Yeah, that's probably true.
That would probably end the same way that it ended with Zion Raggins on the sidelines this year. Not quite well. A broken camera.
But to be clear, though, the Sooner Scoop staff has all been invited. Eddie, good. Bob, Josh, Carrie, they're all invited.
That might be the first time that we've all been at the same place at once. Well, I guess Josh has been here a couple times during the
camps,
summer for camps
maybe.
And stuff.
Yeah,
we've made it at the office.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'm excited about it. It's going to be an interesting weekend. The Jim Knowles Watch continues. Obviously, updates on the Crimson Corner on SoonerScoop.com. We'll keep our ears to the ground kind of on the waves that have been made or haven't been made. And I know there's a lot of people that patience is wearing thin, but that's all we can do right now is have a little bit of patience.
Well, and I would just encourage people out there that, maybe you just listen to the YouTube show. Look, the Sooner Scoop community is great for, all the fun stuff that we talked about. If you want to just have OU-centric stuff, it's also just great for like weeding out what's true and what's not in terms of, stuff that's out there on Twitter or Instagram, wherever you get your news, all these different Discords. I think that Scoop, we do an excellent job of telling you exactly what's going on. Even if there is no update, we'll tell you that there's no update.
Which is a tough thing to do sometimes.
Yeah, it
is. People are expecting news, and as of
we'd love to sit here and tell you that Jim Knowles has been hired as OU's.
It'd be a lot easier to do that than this.
Yeah,
and speculate and try to figure out. All right, where's connect all the dots and all that kind of stuff. It's
right, and you can get on Scoop for $1.
Pretty good deal right now,
and chat with Carrie's diabetes
in this economy. Really good deal. All right, very good. George Stoya, I'm Eddie Radosevich. We'll see you right back here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel. Talk to you then.